Hi everybody, this is Oksana. In this video we're going to make this fun little crisscross pendant, and this is actually the design that I started to make when we were making the owl pendant a few videos ago, but I cut my wire too short. I had to improvise and it ended up being like a completely different pendant, so I thought it was worth trying again and making another video because this is a cool look. I really like the look of this little crisscross pendant here. And if you want to see how I made this, just keep watching. We're gonna start with one piece of 20 gauge square copper wire. This is from riogrande.com. It is dead soft copper. And you just need one piece that is 15 inches long. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring the ends of it together so that we can kind of fold it in half a little bit to determine where the middle of this piece will be. And then once you do that, we want to make a point here in the middle. So with our pliers, we're just going to bend kind of each side until we create this sort of point. I'm just kind of straightening that out. And then you just want to take your stone to see, you may need to adjust your point to make it more narrow or more wide. So in my case, I need to make it a little more narrow because it's quite wide. And as you see, my stone sits in here and there's barely any space left. The stone fills in almost all of that negative space. So I just made it a little bit more narrow. And now if I take my stone and I position it to just kind of sit like this, there's a larger little area underneath, so I'm happy with this. It could be even larger though, but I think this is adequate. And now I'm just holding it tight and I'm bending the wire around my stone. So you can lay this down flat on like a table. That would be probably easier than trying to do it in the air, but I'm just holding it here in front of my camera. And once you bend it around your stone, you want to just put a bend in these wires up here so that this can be a complete frame and we can bring it together like this. So if I take the stone out, it looks like this. It looks just kind of like a little leaf. And we can reinforce this a little bit by kind of making this bend a little sharper there. So it looks like this, but we want it to be not super tight around the stone. You want it to be just the littlest bit wider than your stone. So the easiest way for me to do that is just to kind of widen it a little bit. And then as I'm bringing it back together, I'm just kind of pushing out on these little outer sides of the stone. I'm sorry, not the stone, the frame, just to try to make it a little wider. So let me see if that works. So that worked. And now if I take the stone and I have it in the frame, it kind of loosely moves in and out. As you can see, there's literally just like a millimeter on each side of the stone. So it's almost the same size as the stone, but just the teeniest bit wider, which is what we want. So now I'm going to hammer this for strength, which is recommended, but if you don't have the tools to do it, that's fine. You don't have to. It just makes it easier and it makes the wire stronger and kind of less floppy. You won't be able to bend it out of shape as easily since it's just a frame made of only one wire. So what you would need to hammer is something to hammer on, like this metal block. This is an iron block I got from Michael's many years ago, and then this is a chasing hammer I got from eBay many years ago. So it just has a flat side like this. You can use a regular hammer, but it just may leave more marks in your wire. And all you do is with this flat side, you just hammer it. So just to show you, since I did only one side, I don't think you can see it very well on that block there, but just the difference. So there's obviously like little marks from the hammer, which give it kind of a texture. And then this side looks a little bit wider because we flattened it down. And it's like if I'm touching it, it's a little bit firmer and harder as well. So now I'm just gonna finish this off and then we'll continue. So I've hammered the whole frame now, not up here, not these two wires, but just the little frame that looks like a leaf. And now we're gonna make our bail with some half round wire. This is 24 gauge half round wire. And I'm taking it the flat side down and the half rounded side up, and I'm just grabbing a little tail end of it so that I can use this tail end later. So this is probably about 2 inches or so, and I'm just wrapping it around a couple of times to get it started. Then I'm just going to push this down, leave this tail end for later. And now I am just flipping it because it's easier for me to hold it like this. And I'm just going to turn the piece and I'm going to guide this half round wire so that it stays, you know, the flat side down, half rounded side up, because it can start to twist. But since you're guiding it, you can fix that. And I'm just going to slowly turn it like this. If you just wrap it like this without turning the piece, it will get very twisted. So it's best to just get used to doing this turning way of kind of winding the wire onto the piece. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit, about half an inch or so. It depends on how large you like your bails to be. Some people prefer smaller bails and some people like them larger, especially if you have a necklace that is thicker that needs to fit through the bail. Then the bail would need to be larger. So then I'm just going to trim, and wherever you trim your wire, whatever side, that's going to be the back. So if you have a favorite kind of side of your frame, you should decide which one should be the front and which one should be the back. So I'm just going to press down on all of this now to flatten it, and of course including that wire end so that it will stay down. So now this will be the back and the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold it and I'm going to bend my bail into the shape of a bail. So I'm starting to curve it like this. And then I'm going to continue to curve it, but keep in mind that this whole portion that has a little wrap on it, that's not going to be the entire bail. A little bit of the bail is going to be bare. Okay, so like this. And now we're going to take this tail end and we're going to wrap it completely around, all the way around the front. And then once it reaches the back again, we're going to take it and we're going to put it through the bail. Let me just pull on that, and then we are going to wrap it just like this, until we fill in this area or run out of wire, whatever comes first. Let me grab my other pliers real quick here. So I'm just switching pliers here because the other pliers have flatter, wider ends, and these have a pointier end, so it'll be easier to work in this small little area and get in there. So I'm just wrapping it around. You can press down on that, and almost done. I don't think I'll be able to, actually, let's see. Just wondering if this little end is going to reach all the way around. Actually, it will. All right, so I don't need to cut this. It is like the perfect length for me to take this little wire end, push it in here. If yours was not the right length, you would just trim it so you have a little wire end, and then you just push it in there, and then you press down on everything, and now your bail is complete, and it's also connected, so the bail is now not going to come open. So what we're going to do is open up these little back wires here, and just like this, and we are going to work on lining them up with the frame. Like this, so you almost can't see them. Here they are in the back, right behind that frame. We're now going to cut ourselves 2 pieces of this other wire. This is half round wire, but it's much thicker than the half round wire that we used for the bail. It is 18 gauge half round wire, and I cut myself 2 pieces of it. I just kind of eyeballed these, so let me measure them for you. So they are about 4 inches. So I'm going to set one aside, and with one of those pieces I'm going to put it here. This should be just a little bit above the middle, so right here is the middle, and this is just above the middle. That's where you will also want, and they probably will just naturally do this, these wires, they're like lined up with the sides, so they start just going straight, and then you start having a gap here where they separate from the frame. So you want to connect them to the frame right at this lowest point before they go away from the frame, if that makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the wire behind everything, kind of in the middle, like the middle of this wire, like laying the frame onto that thick half round wire. And I'm going to take it and wrap it around. This is a little bit trickier to wrap around. You can't just pull it. It's not a very thin, flexible wire, so you have to help yourself with your pliers and kind of press on it and tighten it with your pliers. Okay, and I'm going to do that on both sides here. And when you're wrapping it around, this little end, you don't want it to go through here, you want it to go through here. So if you're holding it like this, through the bottom, or if you're holding it upside down, then it's the top. So I'm just getting it through there, trying to keep it even, right? Because it's sliding around, so I don't want it to be all uneven. I want it to kind of be the same on the left side and the right side. All right, so here's what that looks like. It's a little bit higher here. So I'm just gonna adjust it a little bit. And what you wanna do now is we're gonna take these side wires and we're just gonna lift them up this way just temporarily to move them out of our way, like that. And now we're going to take this little wire end and we're going to wrap it around just the frame. That's why we had to move these wires, because I didn't want to keep wrapping it around those wires. I want to wrap it around only the frame. So I made the wrap. I'm just going to tighten that up with my pliers. I'm going to bring it around again. And now the second time that I'm bringing it around, I'm going to trim it and I'm going to leave myself just the tiniest little wire end, because what's going to happen now is I'm going to push down and just kind of turn with my pliers to push down that wire end, but I want it to be really short so it stays here just kind of in the edge, because if it's too long it'll start poking out on the back and you'll feel it, and you don't want that. You want it to be kind of hidden. So now I'm going to do that on this other side as well. So I'm going to wrap around once, just going to tighten that up with my pliers, and then I'm going to bring this little wire end this way and then trim it, leaving myself just the tiniest little end so that I can push it down in here and it's out of the way. So let me just bring this together a little more as kind of a gap there. There we go. Making sure everything's still centered. This wire is going straight across. It's not like tilted. Yeah, making sure the other wires are hidden behind the frame, so that looks good. So now we're gonna take our other piece of our 18 gauge wire and we're gonna do something similar, but we're gonna do it here, lower down, like this. So just give yourself just a little bit of space and then take this other piece of the wire and we're just gonna wrap it around the edge to connect. All right, so that first little wrap, just gonna tighten that up, bring it across. It does move, but we'll press down on it really firmly when we're done with both sides to make sure that it doesn't slide around. So I'm pressing down on that little wire end, and now I'm gonna do this other side. This is why we needed the little bit of space. Remember how there is like a little millimeter of space on each side, because this wire is thick and it has added to the side. So if this was really flush with the stone, then the stone wouldn't fit into the frame anymore, if you know what I mean. So now I'm going to finish off this wire. Push down on this little end. And this is what we have. So now we can take our stone. So I don't think I've measured it yet. Let me measure my stone for you. It is an oval aquamarine and it is it an inch? It's a smidge more than an inch. It's about 30 millimeters. So what we want to do is we just want to put it in the frame. Just kind of push it in there. Since the frame was a little bit larger than our stone, it should fit in there like this. And then we're going to take these wires, these little side wires here, and we're going to bend them onto the stone. And when you bend them, they naturally form a little gap there. You can see a little gap on the sides. So you don't have to make it a big gap, you can kind of close that up, but don't close it up completely because we'll be using it. It just needs to be big enough for us to fit a wire through that gap. So now the goal is to try to get these as equal and even and symmetrical as possible, and then bend them from front to back like this. Let me hold it straight up. So I think this one needs to be just a little bit lower for it to be even with the other side. There we go. Be careful, the stone can fall out. It's not completely secure yet. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna trim these wires, but I'm gonna leave myself a little wire end. It needs to be not super short like we were doing earlier. It actually does need to go past this little edge. Let me just take my stone out. I'm just really paranoid it's gonna fall and shatter as I'm doing this. So maybe you can see better now, this little end wire here. What we want to do is grab it, turn it inwards like this, and then we're going to see it almost makes like a little hook or like a little loop, and when I press on it, it connects back like to itself, so it's like wrapped around. And I'm going to do that on this side as well. So that's how we are connecting these little wires here. So you can see that there, and I'm just going to press down on it and connect it all the way around. So now I'm just going to check, and this wire is higher than the other side, so I'm just going to bring it lower, double check that it's equal, and when it is, I'm just going to press a little firmer on these so that they will really stay and they're not going to move around anymore now that I'm happy with the symmetry of them. So what we're going to do now, before we pop the stone back in, is we are going to grab ourselves one more piece of that 20 gauge square wire, the wire that we made the frame out of. And this is 6 inches long. So I'm going to grab my frame, I'm going to slide the stone into it. So the stone is secure from the bottom and from the back. That's why we had to do these wires on the back. But it's not secure from the top. It can slide up. So we're just going to use one more wire to secure it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire, we're going to find kind of roughly the middle of it, and where there's a middle of it, we're just going to bend it a little bit like this in half, and we're going to take the ends and then see this little gap that's being formed here. So there's a gap on this one side and then a gap on the other side as well. So we're going to take our wire ends and we're going to slide them both, each of them, into the gap like this. So here they are coming out the front. And once you have it like that, you just want to push it from the back, push it all the way through, just kind of gently. See how the wire is disappearing as I'm pushing it through? So try to get it all the way up against your stone like this so it doesn't stick out, so the back is flat. Then we're going to come back here to the front and we're going to take these wires, these wire ends, and we are just going to crisscross them here on the top of our stone, trying to get it to look even and symmetrical. Then we're just going to bend them like this from front to back. And then here on the back, we're going to do the same thing that we did on the bottom. We're going to trim this, but leave yourself an end that's long enough to kind of make a little loop and then close up that loop. So here's my little ends, and then I'm going to take the end, going to curve it in there. These two wires aren't perfectly lined up, see that? But that's okay, because by making that loop, I'm gonna kind of press them closer together. All right, so one side is connected, and now the other side, and this is trapping in the top of the stone. So now the stone is trapped from the back, from the bottom, and from the top. So once you double check that this is all even, this little crisscross is even, then I'm just gonna go back and really press down on these very well so they're not gonna move out of place. Now that I know that they're even, I'm gonna lock them in place. And that's it. This is just a simple crisscross pendant. If you wanted to make it more elaborate, you can add like beads either in up here or down here in this little negative space. It's up to you, but I kind of like this clean look of just the plain little crisscross. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.